What's up, folks? It is I, Craig Stern, the creator of Together in Battle. Today, I want to give you a quick little introduction to the game's campaign creation suite. In order to reach it, all you do is you go right to this button you see here on the right that says Campaign Editor on the main menu, and you click it. And voila, just like that, we are in the campaign creation suite. Now, there's a bunch of different tools available to you as part of this suite. The very first thing you will probably notice when you open this up is we've got two buttons lit up. New Campaign and Open Campaign. Obviously, if you want to edit a campaign that you've already created before, you click Open Campaign and then you can just load up a pre-existing one. If you want to make a new campaign, well, you click New Campaign. Just for the sake of giving you a quick tour of what this editor can do, I'm going to open a pre-existing campaign. Once you've got a campaign loaded in the campaign editor, there are a number of things you can do. The very first of these is you can create characters. There are two types of characters you can make. You can make unique named characters, particularly recruitable characters for the player to control, or unique named enemies. And you can create generic units. These would be like, for example, you could create like Axe Bandit, or Bandit Bowman, or Mercenary Caster, or any number of other things. Whatever you can dream up, you can create here. And you can then use these things in the other editors once they've been created. You can also clone characters to work off them and make variants. And of course, you can delete them if you don't want them anymore. So that's the character creator. Second big class of things you can do in the campaign creator is cutscenes. You can click this button to create cutscenes. These are cutscenes in sort of the Fire Emblem Game Boy Advance style. Things like Fire Emblem 7, Fire Emblem 8 The Sacred Stones, games like that. So you'll have a cutscene background, you'll have character portraits that are kind of like shoulders up that you can animate, and they can adopt different facial expressions, and they can talk, and it's really good for just having like little cinematic cutscenes that help to advance the plot. But you can do more than that in cutscenes. You can have shops, and the contents of shops, you can very carefully hand select, or you can randomize. You can even have shops include procedurally generated weapons and armor for the player to buy if you want. That's an advanced feature, but it is within the editor as well. One other thing that is supported by cutscenes is voice acting. You can have voice acting in the game for character dialogue. You can put in voiceovers for cutscene narration. It's got all of those features and more. You will notice right above it, there's this thing that says Global Dialogue and Scripts. Dialogue in this game doesn't have to be linear. You can have full-fledged dialogue trees with attached scripts and multiple reply options that lead to different branches of the tree, that trigger different scripts, that lead to all kinds of different effects in the game. If you wanted, you could even just make a campaign entirely out of cutscenes and make it essentially a visual novel. That is well within the ability of this creation suite to make happen. And global dialogue and scripts, as it happens, these are dialogue trees and scripts that are available in every scene. So if you have a particular kind of dialogue that you want to be accessible in multiple different scenes in the game, you can write it in here and then access it from cutscenes or, drumroll please, battle maps. So this is the second type of scene you can create here in the campaign creator. Maps are battles. They are sort of Fire Emblem style or FFT style or any real SRPG style battle map. You can have terrain. You can have environmental hazards like water, lava, or chasms. You can put down defensive clumps of tall grass. You can put down ice, which makes it impossible to dodge. You have weather effects available to you. And you can even procedurally generate enemies on the fly in the maps, or for that matter, allied units. Each map supports up to 6 different armies with any sort of combination of alliances you can imagine. You can customize AI behaviors. There's just a million different things you can do in these maps. And they support the same dialogue and scripts as cutscenes. So you can have maps that play out wildly differently based on player choices or based on what they do in the battle, which you know, not every SRPG really does, but you can if you want. The creator makes that available to you. And of course, you know, the dialogue in maps also supports voice acting. And of course, it supports all of the characters that you create over here. They can fight in the maps, level up, and so on. You'll notice that all of these scenes have a little arrow next to them. These show, by default, what scene comes next after that scene. So there's a sort of canonical linear progression you can set up for your campaign. Moving on, we can create items using the item editor. So there are a lot of items that are in the game by default, 36 pages worth in fact, and you can just kind of click one and it'll open it up in the item editor and you can edit to create like a variant on it, or just create one yourself from scratch, brand new. It supports it all. And of course, any items you create can then be assigned to characters in the character creator. They can be made into drops in battles or put into treasure chests. It all interacts quite nicely. Got one last editor, and that is the skill editor. In this game, character attacks and other combat abilities are referred to as skills. So for example, if you have a Barudit, which is a sort of a lizard man class, they fight with maces, they will gain a skill called Mace when they equip a mace as their weapon. But there are a bunch of dependent skills that they can learn. So if they've got a mace equipped, not only do they get mace, but once they learn Stunner, then they'll also have access to Stunner. And they'll also have access to Bonebreaker. But those are just attacks, right? Skills go beyond that. You can do more than just that. For instance, Barudit can learn to equip nets. And nets grant an auxiliary skill called Throw Net, which lets you ensnare enemies and keep them from moving. And there are all kinds of other things you can learn that are like not just pure attacks, like Disarm, for example, right? That is a skill that lets you take an enemy's weapon out of their hand. They can no longer counterattack. Pocket Sand, you can just throw at an enemy to blind them before you go in for the attack. Unlock Door, right? There's an item that you can equip in your offhand called Lockpicks that grants the Unlock Door skill. When you use Unlock Door on a locked door, well, you can probably guess what happens. It unlocks the door, and it makes it so you can just move through it. Another example would be Shove. You can move your allies to an adjacent space, but you can also move other stuff. You can shove pieces of the scenery that aren't bolted down, like, for example, a boulder, right? You can shove a boulder into an enemy, or you can shove an enemy off a cliff, or you can shove enemies into each other. There's a lot of really cool interactions like that supported in this engine. You got pull, you got toss. You can literally throw enemies if your character has the correct ability. Leap is a particularly neat one. There you literally just jump over an enemy or a tree or whatever happens to be in your way. Skills can do all this and more. You can even have skills that call scripts. You can script a brand new effect and attach it to a skill for a character to learn. You can also have items grant skills. So like Weighted Net, right? So this is an item that grants that other skill I talked about earlier, Throw Net. If a character has Weighted Net equipped, it grants them Throw Net. So you can have an item that grants a skill that calls a script and does whatever the heck you want. Right? This is just an example of the flexibility you've got to make cool custom stuff in this engine. We have the option to get help. If you have not made a campaign in here before, you click this button and it gives you a little guided introduction. Yeah, in this case, obviously, the creator of this campaign, a community member named Tacitus, he's gone past the guided introduction, he's done all of the basic things, and so clicking this isn't going to give us a ton of new information, but if we go into one of these editors, we will find a button that will give us even more information. It's a reference guide. I'll get more into that in future videos when I go into what each of these editors can do. You have a test button here. You can click that, and it will allow you to start up the campaign from any scene and test it. You can set up a roster of characters that you want the player to already have when they start testing, in case you're not starting them from the beginning. And you can set up scripts. Any script that you have here in global scripts, you can run to sort of set up values so that things are behaving as they should midway through the campaign for purposes of testing. Whenever you are done making your campaign in Together in Battle, you click this little button up here, Upload Campaign, and it will stick it up on Steam Workshop for every other player to access. Once a campaign is uploaded, all you have to do to access it as a player is you go to the title screen, you hit New Game, and there is a little button that you will see down here. It says Get More. Download new campaigns to play. You click it, and boom, what do you know? The campaign is there, available for download. Hopefully this overview was interesting, and maybe it's even given you some ideas for cool stuff you can do making your own campaign in Together in Battle. Thanks so much for watching. In our next video, we'll get started talking about how you create a new campaign, naming it, coming up with a description, and coming up with your starting set of characters. I'll see you there.